Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we'll be answering the question, what do I got to do when I'm 5 years out from retirement? In today's video, we'll talk about what you would do each year as you near retirement. And that will be everything from your lifestyle to your finances, just making sure everything is in order. Most families and entrepreneurs worry about money, so we created the Wisdometric framework to help you eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. So when it comes to retirement planning, when you're 5 years out, you really want to make sure that you have your house in order. And when it comes to that, on that fifth year, that is really what the most important thing you want to do is you want to get an inventory of your finances. You want to see how much money you have in your accounts, and then you want to project out how much that means you can spend in monthly or annual income. And the way that would look is for many people, you would say, okay, right now, I'm getting 10, 15, 20%, whatever the return is that you're getting on your investments. And you want to say, okay, in my retirement, I'm going to be lowering that. I want to make sure that I'm focusing on capital preservation. And what that means is I'm no longer focusing on growth. I'm focusing on maintaining what I have. And so based on that, you may say, okay, well, if inflation is roughly 3% every year, I want to make sure that my investments are at least getting me 3%. But you may say, okay, I believe I can get 4 to 6% comfortably without being too risky and too aggressive. So based on those percentages, and I spent that every year, how much money would I have each month? And based on that, you can say, okay, do I have enough money coming in now to cover my expenses? And so when you start looking at your expenses, you're going to say, okay, well, this is how much I'm spending on my mortgage. This is how much I'm spending on all of my need to have. So like my food, my clothing, housing, things like that. And then you can say, okay, well, this is how much I have left. And you can say, well, this is how much I want to spend on my want to haves. And whatever that looks like in your retirement, which we'll go over a little bit more when we talk about what you want to do when you're 3 years out. But right now, you just want to get the numbers. And you want to say, okay, how am I looking? Am I making enough money, or at least am I projected to make enough money to cover the lifestyle that I'm going to have? Basically, the expenses exactly where they are at right now. And then you can say yes or no. And then from there, you'll be able to say, all right, well, we're looking pretty good. Now that you're 5 years out, you may look at these numbers and say, you know, we need to make some changes. And you can. That really leads you into the fourth year, where this is going to be the year where you focus on debt elimination. When you spent the fifth year looking at how much money you have versus how much you need, then you're able to say, okay, well, let me lower how much I need. And you could do that for a variety of reasons. One is because the numbers don't meet, but some people just don't want to have that many expenses. So if you want to lower the overall expenses that you have, well, let's go ahead and put a plan together. It's much easier to eliminate a certain bill if you give yourself 4 years versus if you're on your last year and you're like, okay, well, now I want to pay off the house. Well, if you want to pay off the house because you have 10 years left, but you want to maybe double up or triple up the payments, doing that when you're 4 years out is much more manageable and much more reasonable than saying, all right, my last year, let's get rid of the house payment. So you can make that plan when you're 4 years and go from there. That could be the same with your vehicles. That could be the same with really any of your expenses. When you're 4 years out, if you're saying we're going to allocate a certain amount of money each month for the next 4 years to certain bills, you should be in a pretty good position to make sure that you are debt free if you're not already so. As you get rid of those bills, you can then decide where that money you want to allocate goes. You can allocate it towards other bills. You can allocate it towards your investments, or you can put it away in like an emergency fund for maybe like medical expenses or different things like that you just want to make sure you have yourself set up for. When you're 3 years out, that's when you want to focus on your lifestyle. So we've done a lot of the nuts and bolts where you know how much money you have, you know how much debt and the lifestyle that you have. You've already got a plan on getting rid of some of the debt. You really want to take a step back and say, okay, how is retirement going to look for me going forward? And what I mean is you're going to say, what city do I want to live in? Do I want to stay in the same country? Do I want to travel? Do I want to live in a house or an RV? Am I going to keep my house? Or am I going to, what is it that your lifestyle looks like? Are you someone that decided, okay, I live in the cold, I want to move somewhere warm? Well, that's fantastic. I would simply say that more times than not, when we talk about retirement lifestyle, I call that the who, what, where, when, and why of retirement. You want to know who you're going to retire with. You want to know when you're going to retire, which is hopefully going to be in the next 3 years. And then you want to be able to say, okay, why am I retiring? Why am I going to move to these places? Why do I want to have this life? Is it because you've always wanted to travel and now is going to be the perfect opportunity because your kids are grown and you're going to retire and you're going to have a lot more time? Well, then that's going to be very motivating and you'll be very excited about that. Do you just want to do it because that's what you like saw on TV? Well, that's fun and all, but the things don't really motivate you as much as the why and the reasons and the purpose. So I just find that it helps people when they understand exactly why it is that they want the goal that they have. And then we would come down with to vehicles as well. Do you want to have a different kind of car, like your retirement car, which is kind of like the car that you've always wanted and you've been like responsible up until now, so you feel like you're going to splurge a little bit? Well, that's cool. Just make sure that that's covered in your retirement plan. Are you going to be someone that says, you know what, I really want to be a part of a community, and so I'm going to move into some sort of retirement community where there's lots of games and events and traveling that's already set up and I don't have to think about it? Well, that's fine as well. Start looking and seeing if there's one of those communities where you're at now, or whether you may need to move somewhere else so that you're able to enjoy that. Are you someone where the motivation for you is like, oh, my kids are gone and they moved to this other state and I really want to spend more time with them and my grandkids' family is really important to me? Well, if that's the case, then you want to be looking at, the expenses there and the cost of living there and what the property values are going for, and seeing exactly what it is that you want to accomplish and how that will look while you're living there. You should really enjoy this third year where you really just think about it each day or each week, where you just reflect on what really does retirement look like for me? What is that lifestyle that I want? Am I going to be someone that's going to be sitting on their front porch, just kind of relaxing in the sun, reading a book? Well, then you may not need as much of the income that you were thinking because you're going to have a simpler retirement life. If you're someone who on the other end is saying, you know what, I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to be doing things, I'm going to be going to sporting events. Like I've always wanted to go to the Super Bowl or a World Series. I've always wanted to do, run with the Bulls or something like that. Well, then you're going to put the money away so that you can have those events and that type of fun in your retirement, whatever that is. But it's going to change the amounts that you have. And so you just want to make sure that you have that understanding at least 3 years out so that you can make any adjustments in the financial aspect of your plan as you need. Also, if you're planning on selling your home, you may want to update some of the appliances and things like that. And when you have 3 years to be able to do that, it works a lot better for you. The same holds true when you're looking and evaluating where you're going to move to. It's not usually as quick of a process as we often think. So we want to make sure that we've given ourselves enough time so that we don't have to make any changes to our plans as we move into it. If you're finding value in this video, I'm just simply asking you to subscribe so you can keep learning about overall retirement investment strategies to make sure that your retirement is perfect for you. When you're 2 years out from retirement, this is when you're going to be putting in a little bit more of the number crunching work. And that is why we set up that third year out where it feels really good to focus on the vision and the why, where you really enjoy and you're really motivated and excited for your retirement. Because in year 2, that's when you want to start putting your tax efficient plan together, in the sense that you want to make sure that you know what order you're going to take your money out in. Now, the cool thing about retirement is it doesn't mean that you're like 60 and you're about to turn 65. You could be 20, 30, 40, 50. You could be 70 or 80. You're 5 years, well, now you're 2 years out from retirement. So you want to see what that looks like for the overall money that you're putting in. If you're under 59 and a half, then that means that you are not going to be accessing any of your pre-tax money, well, at least without paying a penalty, because you generally don't want to have to take the penalties. So if you're able to do that, then you're able to say, okay, well, this money I'm not going to touch until after 59 and a half. And so any of your pre-tax money, that's money basically that you put in before tax. That's why where the pre-tax comes in. And so that money is going to be taxed when you take it out. So you want to make sure that you have that plan in place as far as the order that you take your money out to lower that overall tax implication and to make sure you're not paying any penalties. Then the same holds true with your Roth. If you have your tax-free money, which is going to be your after-tax money that you've already paid taxes on before you invested it, well, that money you want to make sure that that's something that is continuing to grow because it is tax-free, and you generally want to touch your Roth last, and you want to make sure that you're putting things in the right order. Also, if you're someone who was about to retire and that may be the highest income years of your life, if you were to retire immediately from there and your plan was to use Medicare, well, that could increase the Medicare cost that you would end up paying. And so you want to make sure that if it's possible, maybe I can go a couple years with my retirement income. So that way that changes the amount of money that I would pay in Medicare because I'm not making as much. And then that also has an impact on your Social Security, just how much money you're making versus how much they're going to give you. And so you want to make sure that you're just really thinking through that part of the plan to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure where you're going to have a higher expense and you're going to have like a lower income. You want to make sure that you put things in order that it works for you. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is some of them have required minimum distributions. So, they used to be 70.5, now it's 72, where basically you have to take out a certain amount of your pre-tax money, basically anything that hasn't been taxed yet. Uncle Sam said, I've been waiting patiently and you've been responsible with your money. So I just feel like you need to go ahead and start paying me some taxes, right? I don't want this money to just stay in your pre-tax bucket for the rest of your life. I want to be able to start collecting some of the taxes on that. And so when you have that, you want to make sure that your overall required minimum distributions, that they are also a part of the plan and that you're taking them out. Sometimes you don't want to start those until the required time, but you may need to start earlier depending on what your plan is. This is also going to be something that you just really want to be thinking about, really in the whole aspect of your plan. You may want to start looking at your estate. How are the taxes and the implications going to be for my legacy? If I leave all the money in my 401k and then my legacy goes to take it out, they're going to have to take all of it in most instances. And that could end up creating a much larger tax burden for them because they're not able to take it out in small increments as you would have been. So does it make sense to leave all of the money in my 401k or any other pre-tax instrument? It's just something that you really want to consider. And that's a great thing to do for the second year when you're 2 years out from retirement. So you can make any changes that makes the most sense for you. If you find you have additional questions about retirement planning, I invite you to check out my free retirement planning that works video training at obsidianwisdom.com/training. In it, I give you the entire wisdometric framework that I use with my clients to help them eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. So now you're on your very last year. And if you were counting 1 to 5, then you're on the 5th year. But we were counting from 5 to 1, so you're on your last year. You are 12 months or less from retirement. Congratulations. I'm sure that it's an amazing feeling. You've already been able to get so much set up that you should feel really comfortable about retiring, where you're saying, okay, I know how much I have, how much I expect to be able to spend each month. I know what my expenses are and how much I need to have to cover those expenses. You would have gotten rid of some of your debt, strategized on the tax efficient plan, and really just envision that lifestyle where you understand exactly what it is that you're going to be doing next in your life. And so now that you have that clarity in your last 12 months, now you just want to simply be able to say, okay, now that I'm 12 months out, let me just make sure that everything still looks good. And what I mean is if something happened and maybe you were saying, okay, I'm going to be able to put this much money away each month and we're going to hit our numbers, but maybe something happened, something medical happened with you or someone that you care about, someone that you take care of. There was some event, maybe the company disappeared, your business, something changed with that and the ownership, whatever it is, something happened that you have to reevaluate whether it still makes sense for you to go on with your retirement. You were optimistic when it happened that you'd be able to make up for it either way. But now that you're 1 year out, you want to be able to say, you know what? I need to push this back another couple years. I need to maybe push this back 5 years, whatever it is. You want to just be open and transparent with yourself and your finances, where you're like, you know what? This wasn't the plan that I had. Everything that I needed, I haven't gotten there yet. So let me just push it back a little bit. And the reason is you don't want to maintain the aggressive investments that you've been using to build your growth, right? Whether you're growing at 10, 15, 20, 30%, whatever it was that you were growing at. Well, now you need to lower it to that conservative number that we talked about when you're 5 years out, where the number that you maintained a certain lifestyle that you'd be able to spend off of. Well, if you're going to lower it around that 3 to 5% return, where you're either just covering inflation or you want to make sure you at least get a little something extra, well, that means that you have to make those adjustments to your overall allocations and your investments. And the reason that we do that is because when we're 1 year out, we're not focusing at all on growth. And then outside of just making sure we cover inflation, we're really focusing on making sure that we preserve our capital, that the money that we've put aside, it stays there. Imagine being someone who was looking at their numbers. They felt really good in 2007 about retiring, and they were 1 year out, and then the recession of 2008 happened, and they lost 30, 40, 50, 60% of their portfolio with the rest of the market. If they retired, it would significantly change the lifestyle that they were going to have, and if they didn't, then they had to continue working to make that money back. Now, as you know, the stock market has worked where you didn't make the money back, but you would have had to work probably another 5 to 10 years to make all of it back. Because, right, if you were investing and you lost like 20% and your money went down from like $100 to $80, you wouldn't just make 20% the next year to get back to 100. You would only be making then 20% on the 80. So you have to make 20% plus some to be able to cover that gap. So you want to make sure that you understand as you get to the very end that capital preservation is very important, because you don't plan on being in those aggressive growth markets much longer. So you want to be able to start adjusting it. This will help you sleep at night because you're not trying to hit a home run, and it'll also make sure that you're not putting yourself at risk that you just don't need to. And when you make those adjustments, you should feel really good about the capital that you have and the amount that you have grown and accumulated, and you want to make sure that you protect that. This is also a good time just to make sure that if you were going to be moving and putting your house on the market, that you maybe been talking to the real estate agents, kind of setting things up. And if you want to do anything additional with your beneficiaries and your legacy planning, then this would be a great thing to do, because some things have changed. People may have changed relationships. Maybe you have more kids that you have to consider. Maybe you want to consider the grandkids. Maybe the situation with your spouse has changed where they're no longer the same beneficiaries. Whatever changes that you may have, you want to make sure that your will and all of your other estates is set up, that you've set things up as best as you can to make sure that you have the safest and most efficient strategy possible. And then after that, man, you should be feeling good. You should be feeling good about retirement. You should be ready to go into it and start the next phase of your life where you're no longer trading your time for money, but your money is working to generate more money, and you're able to keep all of your time, your most valuable asset. To me, that's what retirement always is. It's my ability to keep all of my time. And whatever age that is for you, I'm excited that you're there, and I hope that you feel ready to go. Now, Wisdomites, I always enjoy our time together. Remember, wisdom is asking the right questions to allow yourself to get the right answers. Keep asking those questions, and you will keep getting those answers. Continue blessings.